today I have Sherry from Root Forest Coaching with me. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for joining me.
It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's so super exciting. So, Sherry, you are very interested in recovery addiction, the place from where we go from having gotten through the recovery, kind of get out of our bearings, and then taking a step from there and getting into life and doing life and figuring out what that looks like. You want to give us a little bit of why that is such a passion for you?
Yes, for sure. So growing up in a bit of a rough childhood, I mean, we all have been there. We've all gone through our own kind of traumas and our own situations. And realizing when I actually got to the point of doing my self-development, which I started roughly about 3 years ago, when I started doing that self-development journey and actually realizing the types of addictions that I had actually gotten myself into, especially when it comes to things like food and codependency and that type of stuff, because it's a challenge to see those things as addictions when it's something you do every day. You have to eat every day. You know, you're in relationships with people in your life. You have multiple relationships and you don't pick up that certain things can turn into addictions. I mean, our cell phones are them, you know, so it's not only alcohol and it's not only drugs that are addictions. So going through that journey and going through that whole recovery type of process and still battling with it every day, it's made me very passionate about trying to help others after getting through. So, you know, you go through that whole program and you go through your rehabilitation and all that type of stuff, but actually integrating back into everyday life, you know, you're surrounded by triggers that were there when you started. It's a consistent battle, and it's just to find balance, you know, in your life. So that's kind of where I enjoy helping as best I can, helping the people around me.
Fantastic. So I cover codependency quite a lot, so those who have followed understand and know what codependency is. I'm just going to go through really quickly as a recap, and then maybe Sherry, you can give us some personal examples. You know, so often it's easier for people to relate to a personal example where they can see themselves in that example and say, oh yes, I see this within myself, or I see this with somebody that I live with, or a loved one or friend or whatever. Because it's such a broad term that gets thrown around, and there's actually quite a lot to codependency, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. You know, different people will have different facets of codependency that shows up in their lives. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Just broadly, for those who don't know, your codependent is essentially you're not yourself. You don't know who you are anymore. You are so used to giving to other people, sacrificing, border on the line of being a little bit of a martyr, very low self-esteem, looking for outside validation all the time. You don't know how to get that validation and that acceptance from yourself. So you look out for that validation, you look out for that acceptance, you look to the world, you look to people, you look to relationships. Relationships become very messy, they become very sticky because we are needing people to feed our self-esteem, tell us that we're okay, to let us feel that we are needed and that we're wanted and that we're necessary, because these are generally things that we have not received in our life yet. These are messages that maybe we receive the opposite to, and so we have that very shaky base, a very shaky foundation, and we look outside of ourselves to fill that hole. We sometimes have this need to control ourselves, control our environment. We feel very lost. Quintessential codependence is just the loss of self. So, Sherry, if you could share with us an example of how codependency has shown up and manifested in your life.
Okay, so my prime example, being in a relationship with someone, we were in a relationship for many years and still on and off, and it's that type of relationship where when you have the codependency and you suffer from that, it's you give yourself to such a degree to that person that, like you say, you lose yourself. it got to a point where you couldn't ask me what my favorite food was because I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you because I based my answers on what you would want first, you know. What do you want to eat? You know, because if I have to say what I want to eat, maybe you're not going to be happy with me, and then I may lose you for some very, you know, it's quite a stupid reason, but it's in your mind, it is manifested in such a degree. So it's that whole, like you say, that affirmation. You live for the affirmation. You all you want and you crave is affirmations, and that can come in where you go to manipulation. I mean, the amount of times I manipulated people into staying around me and to make them feel bad about maybe leaving me, and I feel that them pulling away. So I'm now going to manipulate, and I know what to say. I know how to say it, and I'm going to say all the things that I know, so that you are going to now tell me that you are not going to leave me. And that is that form of manipulation, and it's not an easy thing to come to terms with, to actually admit that you are manipulating people in order to keep that validation and to keep that identity that you're forming in the other person. And it's a hard journey to walk, and it's also a lot of times codependency will come in that addiction side where you will have the relationships with people who are more needing of your help, who are needing you, and that is that addiction. So you will then get attached to those people because you know that you're giving them something that it's going to be harder for them to let you go, and it's that extra like hold on it. So it is definitely one crazy journey to walk. It definitely is a crazy journey to walk, and to find yourself afterwards, it's not an easy process, but it's definitely a process that's worth doing, because you know, we all are our own self, and we can't make our identity part of another person, because it will never be the true identity of who we are. So yeah, that's my kind of say.
And so much part of that codependency is this addiction to control your circumstances and the person around you, and that's what you're talking about, and how this manipulation comes into play. And so often, when you first kind of read about the telltale signs of a codependent addiction, not me, we go into denial, or we excuse, or we justify our bad behavior, and to keep ourselves in the seat of power, this elusive power that we believe that we've got, but we don't actually have. And it's what actually keeps us